Hello, and welcome back to our farmhouse here on our little country farm. We have had some really beautiful days here this winter, and we have done a lot of work on our little farm store down at the front of our property. Spent time with the cows and the goats and our new bottle baby Buckling, and made lots of really yummy meals. Today I am just getting a roast going. This is one of the first roasts that I am cooking myself from our first beef cow that we raised and brought home back to the farm, and that is a really exciting thing. I like to save our roasts. To me, they are just a really good cold weather comfort food, and I could eat it every day and not get tired of it. So I have only had, I think, one other than this one. Now, I didn't have potatoes today, and I have been baking all of the fresh milled bread, trying to practice. So I'm just gonna throw in some carrots that were hiding from me in the back of the fridge. They are a little past their prime, but they will be delicious nonetheless. I find that in meals like this, you can get away with carrots that aren't quite as fresh as you normally would prefer, and they still taste really good. So I'm throwing lots of carrots in there. I think I did 2 per person and then a couple extra. So I am chopping those while my roast sears on each side in butter on the saute function, and then slow cooking that, covered in a little bit of water and salt and pepper. We have been in a bit of a drought as well for several weeks, and we finally got a massive rainstorm. The wind was crazy. We were under tornado watches. And so while I kept my eye on the weather in case the kids and I needed to make a run for the storm shelter, I deep cleaned and decluttered my entire kitchen. It took me all of this rainy day and into, I think, another day or two just to get all the loose ends tied up, stuff packed up that needs to go to the thrift store. And I sold a few things on Facebook that were still in really good shape. I just had too many of or didn't use as much anymore. And so all my cabinets, I have a few spots that are empty, which feels so nice. I have several cabinets actually that are completely empty. I don't like to keep a lot of things, but I also have a few things that I collect that were kind of spilling out of the cabinets. And then also, we are a farm, and even though a lot of our food production has slowed right now, we don't have the garden in winter, my goats are not in milk, I do have all of the equipment for all of those things. So canners and jars and dehydrators and vacuum sealers, and I had 2 Instant Pots and I ended up selling one, but Instant Pots and supplies to make yogurt, all of the things. And then of course the beloved coffee cabinet that has all kinds of coffee stuff. I have tons of pots and pans and just things that you need in a real food kitchen where you are making bone broth and cheese and yogurt and cooking large amounts of meat and beans and grains. All of those things gotta have a place. But I'm proud to say now that from the pantry all the way throughout the kitchen has been decluttered and cleaned up a little bit, and I even have decorated just a bit more. The sun came out the next day after the big rainstorm. It actually came out that afternoon even, once all of it passed. And we cooked up some eggs. I feel like I finally have a grip on my cast iron, and it is so nonstick and just working really well in our kitchen. We made up some quick eggs and went outside to enjoy some sunshine. Then when we came back, I had the itch to decorate a little bit, and I know it's not spring, and they're actually saying our February is going to be actually like winter. So even though it has felt like spring for the entire month of January and at least part of the month of December that I remember, it is not spring. In fact, it is still winter, and they are calling for a cold, possibly snowy February, but still, I'm going to decorate anyway. I'm putting my sun hat up on this little nail. I just love the way it looks. I'm putting my country garden shirt back up and a nice comforter I had thrifted a while back. That way we can still grab that on those snowy, cold days. Keith also hung my rolling pins up in the kitchen for me. Jack gets in the drawer that I keep these in, and he carries them around and he drops them, and then they're rolling around the floor and they're hitting me on my feet, and it is just not a good thing for the kitchen or for my feet. So I'm getting those hung up where they can stay clean and not injuring anybody anymore. After getting the kitchen cleaned up, I decided I was in the mood to bake something. I traded something out of my kitchen for this McCoy mixing bowl, and I needed to test her out and bake up a little something today for the kids. I have been, as I've shared with you, working on swapping some of our stuff over to fresh milled flour. Now, I'm not totally off the deep end with this. I still, for bread products, like to do half plain flour, like all purpose, but I'm inching that way. We're getting used to it. But one thing I'm struggling with is anything made with soft wheat berries. I've got the bread down with the hard wheat berries, and I've done this before. I used to bake with fresh milled flour, but sometimes it was like einkorn, which behaves differently altogether. So now I'm trying to do this soft white wheat berry stuff for muffins and cookies, and I am struggling. The bread kind of came a lot easier, and that's where I struggled previously when I was using fresh milled flour, was when I tried to make bread. Now I have that down and we're the total opposite. So I've made muffins twice. They have failed both times. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know why. The flavor is so good and we just devour them because they're so good. I think I ate 2 immediately after these came out of the oven, but they're so ugly. Now the first batch I didn't film, but I did a strawberry muffin and they were okay. They weren't ugly. They just didn't have that dome top, like classic look that I want in my muffins. That was made out of my recipe that I use for all my quick breads. I just adjust depending on what flavor I'm doing. So here I'm trying a totally different recipe and these totally flopped. I don't know what in the world went wrong, but they spilled over and then they like caved in even though they were completely done, and some of them a little overcooked, overbaked before I ever opened the door. You know, normally if you pull out something in the oven before it's done, it could cave in on itself. That didn't happen here, so I don't know why they did it, but I'm not going to share the recipe with you because it didn't work for me. But I am doing blueberry today, and we're still eating them. They're still delicious. This is just part of figuring out recipes and figuring out what you like in your kitchen. And so I'm going to share that because not everything that I make turns out perfectly. And sometimes I can get discouraged when I watch people and everything is so perfect looking, even though I know they did exactly what I'm doing here and struggled a few times before they got it right. So this will not be the last of the muffins. I'm determined to make good muffins for my kids because having something ready to go like that is so helpful in the morning. Jack wakes up in anger because he's so hungry. And so when I have something that I can just quickly grab for him with no prep, no time spent on it, it just gets us to a happy baby a lot faster. Now I did do a streusel topping on the top of these, and I love having a streusel topping on there, or like a crumb topping on the top of them. But I don't know if that's maybe what made them cave in. I have tried something like this on a cinnamon bread before, and I never could get it to not cave in the same way that these did. So I'm wondering if that's not part of it, if I'm not doing something wrong with the crumb topping. Everything said keep it cold, and I did cheat. It could be that the butter was already too warm, and so it just melted into the batter. I don't know. I didn't do any without the streusel, so I can't be sure what went wrong. These were the prettiest of the muffins. Clearly, Jack had no issue with them, ugly or not.